It's time for another Dirt Daily. I am back in the shop with the Flatfender. Everybody loves the Flatfender. I love the Flatfender. I really want to get this thing up and running. So today I'm going to do another quick little project on it. But first, this episode is brought to you by OnX Off-Road. OnX Off-Road is a mapping app. You put it on your telephone, helps you find off-road trails. Right now, OnX Off-Road is doing a builder challenge where they have a bunch of people that are like their influencer types and they're building 4x4 vehicles and doing stuff. So go check it out. My buddy Colt is building something that's pretty cool. So if you can vote for somebody, vote for him because he's a pretty cool guy. Today's project is back in this area. Remember, I removed the fender and then I welded the frame back together and I'm starting to put it back together. Well, there's something on the engine that I want to show you that's kind of cool. It's old school, but people are still using this technology today and I think you'll appreciate it. Let's get to work. This is an air cleaner that a lot of you probably use on your modern 4x4. This one's made by Air Raid. This is actually my air cleaner for tube sock, my little diesel Jeep. And this air cleaner has some technology to it that is the same as this air cleaner from back in the 40s and 50s. So here's the thing about these air cleaners. This one's made by Air Raid, but it's kind of the same technology that's used by K&N. K&N is probably the company that most of you use or have heard of or have seen this technology before, where there's kind of like this cottony fiber in the ribs of the air cleaner and you soak it in this oil. It's usually like a red oil comes in the air cleaner recharge kit. And what you do is you soak that cottony fiber with this oil, and then as air is pulled through the air filter and into the engine, which basically goes in here and comes out there, it goes down the intake to your engine, that oil grabs the dirt and helps clean the air charge going into the engine. Now, there's a lot of different opinions about if that's good or bad, but the fact of the matter is that K&N has been doing it for a long time. Air Raid does it. I'm running this type of air cleaner on my Jeep, and I've had good luck with it. So, what does this have to do with my Flatfender? Well, this is the air cleaner canister for the Flatfender. This one wasn't on it when I got the Jeep, but my buddy Jason had a spare one, and I brought it back and I cleaned it like crazy because it was packed full of mud wafts and dirt and gunk and junk. And the way this works, this is going to mount on the firewall over there on the passenger side of the Jeep. And these vents right here, these louvers, is where the air will go up and into the air cleaner. This will be up against the firewall. So it's kind of protected. It shouldn't get like a huge splash of water in there if you ever like dunk the thing. But not that you should dunk the thing. And then the air, after it goes in there, it comes down around the outside of this. So if you look inside here, this has an opening right back in there. You can see my finger. The air will go up and out this opening, and then from that opening over to the carburetor, which is cool. I mean, the air comes in, it goes down, goes around the corner, and goes back up. But you're like, well, where's it actually getting filtered? Well, you can buy paper style filters that you put in this, and it keeps it looking like an old Flatfender air cleaner, but it uses like a dry air filter just like you would have in any modern car. Or you can use this, which is the bottom piece that goes on down here, and then there's clamps on either side that clamp it into place. And if you look right here, it says oil level. So what you'll do is once this thing is mounted on the firewall, you'll fill this thing up with oil to that level. You kind of just see it in there. So basically this center section and this outer section will all have a bunch of oil in it. And it's just regular oil, just regular motor oil, same thing you put in the crankcase. And then there are these things. This is, think of this wire mesh as the same as that cottony fiber that's in the K&N filter. And those will stack up inside here. So, to put it all together, and these when I took this apart, they were filthy, and I cleaned them with gasoline and kerosene and carb cleaner and all types of stuff to try to get all of the junk off of them. But these will slide inside the air cleaner canister. Put those two in there. And then the idea is as the air goes in these louvers down the outside area of this canister, then this will be buttoned up against there and oil will be in the bottom here, and the air has to kind of bubble through the oil, and as it comes up on the inside where the vacuum is getting pulled to the engine, it will pull oil up into this mesh. And so you'll have this kind of oily steel wool type thing, and that will catch the dirt that's going into your engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this on the side of the firewall, and then we will plumb it from here to the crossover tube that goes over to the carburetor. And then we'll fill this up with oil to that level, and then that will come up underneath here, clamp into place, and the oil will basically, it's kind of like if you've ever had a soda and you stuck the straw down in it and then you blew down the straw and it bubbled up through the soda. Or some of you older kids have probably played this game where you pulled air backwards through water or smoke maybe. And that is kind of what's going on here. The engine is sucking the air through this oil at the bottom and up through this oil kind of impregnated wire mesh screen, and that grabs all the dirt so that you have a nice clean air charge going into your engine. Here's another cool story about these oil bath air cleaners. My buddy Filarski, you probably remember him, he came here and we did some gear work on a dirt daily. Well, he was on a Flatfender trip, and one of the guys that was with him was burning a lot of oil, didn't have any spare oil, and they actually took the air cleaner apart and took the oil out of the oil bath and dumped it into the engine and used that to like help top off the oil. It wasn't a lot of oil, it wasn't very clean oil, but it was something rather than having no oil in the engine at all.
Dan's gonna make a funnel because his engine's out of oil and we weren't bright enough to bring oil with us for some reason. We're 50 miles from anywhere, so we took the oil bath air cleaner off. And we're going to funnel the oil out of his air cleaner into the engine and use a sock for an air cleaner for 50 miles before we can find a place to get oil. Right, Nick?
Yep.
Right, Wayne?
Uh-huh.
I don't know in the end if it worked out. I think they eventually just towed the Jeep to get it off the trail. But, I mean, if you really needed a little bit more oil, you could probably scavenge it from your air cleaner if you had an oil bath air cleaner. So this is going to live right in this corner right here. You can actually see the brackets on the firewall. There are 4 threaded inserts for 1/4-20 bolts. So these little guys will just screw in each of these threaded inserts in these brackets, and that is what will support the air cleaner housing when it's in here. I have a rag stuffed in this crossover tube. This is the tube that goes across and then feeds the carburetor, and I just stuffed a rag in there when I was working on the fender and grinding and doing all the welding. It's not exactly the cleanest in there. I should probably clean this out better. Oh yeah, that's really gross. Maybe what I'll do is pull this apart and push a rag through, like soak a rag in some carb cleaner and push it through there and try to clean some of the grime out of that. There it goes. And come on. There we go. This piece of hose will slide over that. And then when the air cleaner bolts onto this, it'll go into this piece of hose. I have 2 bolts started here because this is notched on the driver's side. I am going to slide this into this tube and then line it up with that bracket. I put motor oil in up to the oil level. I've already stuffed one of those kind of steel wool pieces up in there. I'm going to put this one up in the bottom of the canister, and then I will bolt this up in there. It doesn't hold very much, maybe, I don't know, 1.5 cups, but that as the air comes down and bubbles up through that and goes into this mesh, the mesh kind of grabs onto the oil and it holds all the dirt in there. So pretty slick little invention. I'm going to stuff this second piece of steel wool type stuff up in there. I assume you can still buy this steel wool stuff at some sort of Flatfender restoration shop. And I'm going to let it kind of hang down a little bit so that when I put the bottom on, it actually pushes up in, and then I know it's sitting in the oil. Next, you bring this guy up here and push that up against it. Put the buckle underneath on each side. And now your oil bath air cleaner is installed. Pretty simple. Next step, I'm going to put the elbow tube back on top of the carburetor, and then most of my air intake is buttoned up. There's also a little crankcase hose that crosses over from this crossover tube down to the dipstick tube. Mine's kind of rotten. I should probably replace that as well. This is the elbow tube, and it helps keep the intake and everything nice and low. This will actually go inside this crossover tube, and then it will clamp around that, and this will go on the outside of the carburetor. It's a little tight to get everything lined up. There it goes. I got the elbow back in, but it almost looks like right here where this tube is split to go over the elbow, that the elbow doesn't reach in far enough, and there may be a little gap in the far end of that little split. So I'm going to grab some tape and just run a loop of tape around this tube right where that is, just to help seal up for those little holes. There's one on the top and the bottom where that groove is cut into it. And then I will put this clamp on right over the tape, and I feel like it'll be assured that I'm not getting air going in through that little crack where the tube is opened. There we go. air cleaner's in, oil's installed, element is inside of it. Tube is installed, new little crossover tube from the crankcase up to the intake tube. Elbow's installed with a little piece of tape. Clamps are all tight. I think the intake is done. That about wraps up this Dirt Daily. It's a pretty simple little system here, and I don't know, I've never had a Jeep with an oil bath air cleaner before, so I don't know if like you go four-wheeling, if it's gonna splash around or leak, or if it seals up pretty good. We'll wait and see. But I feel like we're one step closer to getting this Jeep back up and running. I still have a lot to do. I think next time maybe I'll put the alternator conversion kit on and get this fender back on, get the battery back in, and then we still need to figure out the cooling system. I want to get it outside and flush all the cooling system out. But every day I do one more little thing on this little Jeep and you get that much closer to getting it back on the trail. That's it for this Dirt Daily. We'll see you guys next time.